I'm Megan. I'm an occupational therapy assistant student at Wallace State, and today we are going to be working with Tommy. Tommy is a 6-year-old boy. He has been diagnosed with autism. He is in kindergarten. He lives at home with his parents and his 2 sisters, and he loves weather and nature. Some of the main problems that he has is aggression, behavioral outbursts, sensory issues, and he is very easily overstimulated. Some of the appropriate milestones he should be reaching, or he should have already reached. He should be able to cooperatively play with others, but however, he is mostly nonverbal, and he doesn't really know how to communicate with others. He can't recognize his own strengths. His father can barely hold him in a therapeutic hold. He should be able to properly regulate his emotions, but he cannot self-calm himself if he gets overwhelmed in class. He should have already had friendships start forming. However, he got pulled out of preschool by his mom and was homeschooled. And his classmates try to become friends with him, but he doesn't really want to. He doesn't know how to communicate with them. His main goals: he should demonstrate appropriate social behaviors, sensory techniques, integrating multiple food textures and clothing into, like, when he's dressing, increased fine motor skills when he's cutting. He should be able to catch a small tennis ball, a mature tripod grasp when he's writing, initiate and complete toothbrushing twice a day, and then the 2 that I added was he will use the bathroom without prompts 3 to 4 times. He'll stay still during circle time. So in session 1, activity 1, he'll play catch with another person, which will work on goal 1 and goal 5, which is catching a tennis ball and the appropriate social behaviors in a group setting. To start out, you could roll a large ball back and forth to get him used to, like, the ball coming towards him so he doesn't get overwhelmed by that. Then you could toss a medium-sized ball until that is mastered, then move down to a small one. And if he is unable to do it with another person that day, you could have him toss the ball to a wall and then catch it when it comes back to him. And the materials needed for that would be a ball, the wall if he's not able to work with another person, or another person. And then for activity 2, he'll play a board game or a card game, which works on goal 1 and goal 9. Which is the social behaviors, and then sitting still during circle time. So he'll sit and play a board game or a card game with either another child or a therapist. One of the games that I chose was Uno. So you could play it with one person and then just stack the numbers to start out to make it easier. Just stack the numbers in numerical order, and then you could play, to make it a little bit harder than that, you could play as directed, but without the skips, reverse cards, or the +2 and +4 cards where you have to draw. And then just play it as directed with all of those cards that you had already taken out. And then for activity 3, I did a sensory bin, which will work on goal 3 and goal 2. And Tommy will explore the sensory bin and get used to different textures, get used to feeling the different textures, and you will continuously add things that he likes, and then slowly add new things, and then you can start to slowly take them out that he likes already. Some of the materials you could use would be rocks or water, sand, and stuff like that. Since he does really like nature, that would probably help him get used to it more. For session 2, for activity 1, you make sandwiches with a cookie cutter, which works on goal 3, which is integrating food textures, and then goal 7, which is toothbrushing twice a day. So he doesn't like the feel of the toothpaste in his mouth when he's brushing his teeth, so he needs to get more textures and such used to in his mouth. So he can make the sandwich and then cut it out with the shape of a cookie cutter, which might make it more fun to eat. You could already have everything set out for him and set up all together. So all he really needs to do is just cut it, or like just have it to where he can see what is in it. And then you could have him get everything out and put it all together and cut it himself. And then you could change the ingredients up so that way he could have a say-so somewhat in what is going on the sandwich. And you could slowly add new ingredients in order to get different textures in his mouth. And having him make the sandwich and seeing what's on it and having it in a fun shape would more likely have him eat it. For activity 2, I did folding clothes, which works on goal 3, which is integrating and tolerating clothing textures. He would fold clothes to introduce him to the feel of new textures without having it all over his body. Just start out with his hands so he can feel it and kind of decide if he likes it or not. So you would start out with clothes that you know that he likes, the material that he likes without the tags and such. Then you could slowly add new, different materials and then take away. Every time you add a new one, take away one that he has gotten used to and that he liked originally. So materials you would need for that would be just clothing. And then for activity 3, I did coloring, which works on goal 6, which is utilizing the mature tripod grasp. So to start out, he would color different shapes, and then just solid colored shapes, just using one color. And then to make it a little bit harder, he could color the earth or a tree, since he does like nature, using 2 colors. So for the earth, you could use green and blue, and then for a tree, you could use green and brown, or red, or whatever color he really wants to. And then to make it even harder than that, you could do more complex shapes, such as a leaf. So the materials that you would need for that would be crayons. You could get nature coloring pages, because that would intrigue his interest more, and then just simple coloring pages, or just printer paper with circles and squares drawn on them. For session 3, activity 1, I did writing, which works on goal 6, which is the mature tripod grasp. So to start out, he could just write his name using the tripod grasp, and you could do hand over hand for this to help him get used to that grasp. And then to make it a little bit harder, you could start out by writing the alphabet, and then after that you could have him write what the weather is outside and what he likes about nature, or what he wants the weather to be, since he does like nature and weather. So that would pique his interest a little bit more. So the materials you would need for that would be a paper, a pencil, and a pen. For activity 2, I did cutting, which works on and then you could have the shapes started out for him, such as just like cutting the line to the shape, so then he has to cut around the shape. You could just have the shapes drawn for him, so then he has to initiate the cutting around the shape. Or you could have him draw and cut the shapes, which would have him draw in, which would work on the grasp, and then cutting the shapes, which would work on his fine motor skills. So the materials that you would need for that would be paper, scissors, and a crayon. And then for activity 3, I did gluing and drawing, which works on goal 4, which is the increased fine motor skills, and goal 6, which is the mature tripod grasp. So Tommy could glue shapes onto a paper, just randomly placed on the paper, to get him used to the glue, and if it gets on his hands, just to kind of get him used to how to place it down. And then you could draw an outdoor scene and have him glue trees onto the paper, or you could have him cut and glue clouds or puddles to an outdoor scene. The materials for that would be paper, scissors, and crayons. Okay, so for session 4, which is 30 minutes long, for activity 1, I did imitation, which works on goal 7, which is toothbrushing twice a day, and goal 1, which is social behaviors. So I did the nuke brush, which introduces to him, you could introduce to him how to use it, let him choose how he wants to use it, show him how to use it, and see if he would copy, and slowly work your way up to the mouth to get him used to it and to get him to integrate it into his mouth. For activity 2, I did schedules, which works on goal 7 and goal 8, which is toothbrushing twice a day and toileting on his or without prompts. So Tommy would have a visual schedule available to him at all times. He would help make the schedule. It'll be interactive, so they could add things in the morning if like their schedule would change, like if they had a doctor's appointment or something. And then you could take it away once the task is completed. So the materials for that would be felt, Velcro, and then the pictures of the daily activities. And then for 3, I did the Will Barger brushing protocol, which works on goal 3 with dressing, and then goal 9, which is sitting still during circle time. So the brushing protocol usually lasts about 2 to 3 minutes. So he would sit still for 2 to 3 minutes, and it would promote different textures touching him and promote sitting still. You could start on the arms, just start on the arms, or just start on the legs, and then add, either if you start with the legs, add to the arms. If you start with the arms, add to the legs. The materials that you would need would be the sensory brush. And then for session 5, which lasts 30 minutes, I did, for activity 1, I did 5-finger breathing, which works on goal 2 and goal 4. Which goal 2 is the sensory techniques to calm himself, and goal 4 is his fine motor skills. So for that, you would just trace the fingers up and down. So when you go up, you breathe in, and when you go down, you breathe out. So that could help calm him if he gets overwhelmed. And then it also works on finger isolation for the fine motor skills, like whenever you're using scissors. And then for activity 2, I did emotion charades, which works on goal 1 and goal 2. So he would play charades with another person, which would help with social behaviors. To make it easier, he could just guess the other person's emotions. So they would act out the emotion, and then he would have to guess what it was. And then eventually he would also act out the emotion, which would help him understand it more. And then seeing how others act could help prompt him to act the same way whenever he's experiencing that emotion. Like if somebody gets sad, they might just go sit down, or if they get stressed out, they might just go sit down. So it might help him understand more how others react. So he might kind of start copying them, which could also go back to the imitation. So the materials that you would need for that would be the charade cards. And then for activity 3, I did Simon Says, which works on goal 5, goal 7, and goal 8. For that one, you would just play by the rules, just how you usually play. But by making it a game for him, he is more likely to comply and use the game. So you could tell him like, hey, Simon Says, catch this ball. And after he catches on to it being a game, he might be saying, Simon Says, I have to go to the bathroom, which would be him initiating bathroom or going to the bathroom on his own. So the materials needed for that would be a ball and a toothbrush. And then for the home program, I did play therapy. So you could use bubble blowing and popping, which would help work on self-calming and finger isolation for fine motor movements. So for self-calming, it would help work on his blowing, on his breathing, and then popping it would work on the finger isolation. And then they could play baseball with him, which would work on catching the ball. It doesn't necessarily have to be baseball, just some form of, you could just go outside and just play catch. But if you make a game out of it, he would more than likely participate in it.